Coming up on our Finding Better podcast, I've got John Graham joining me again. John was with me on episode 81, and he has lived an amazing life, probably the most varied and challenging life of anybody I've ever met. And he's also known on TikTok as Badass Granddad. And we're going to talk about living with meaning and living with purpose and why that is so important. And uh, and that's kind of why we're here. Okay, so stay tuned. Here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. This is where we share real life experiences of folks who've been there and done that. Um, because sometimes the best path to success is to copy it and follow the examples that others have lived. Listen, today I have John Graham with me. You may remember John from episode 81. He is called Badass Granddad, and so I am really happy to have him back. John has lived an amazing, amazing life. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is living with purpose and what that means and why it's so important. And and here's the thing, folks, when people learn to understand what that means, it changes something. Something happens. There's a shift that happens when you go, "Oh, whoa, that's pretty cool." And now all of a sudden, a lot of your life and a lot of your perspectives might be a little bit different at the end of this conversation. So, John, welcome back to Finding Better. Thanks again for joining me.
Well, I'm like an old penny, John. I keep coming back. But
Yeah, and the getting rid
I'm
of
delighted
pennies,
to
I
be on
guess.
your show.
Well, you are such an interesting person because not only have you been around for a while, right? But you've had such an amazing level of experience. We don't have to go into all of them, but folks, I'd encourage you to go back to episode 81 and listen to John's background because he has done more in his life than anybody I've interviewed, and frankly, anybody I've ever known. And he's with me today to share his experiences and some of the things that he's found in terms of living with meaning and finding meaning in our lives. Because this podcast is all about finding better, right? And one of the big missing pieces or puzzle pieces that people are missing is this. And so, John, how are you doing? How's everything going lately?
It's great. I mean, the sun is shining. It's finally getting to be spring and summer out in the Pacific Northwest.
And you're
Uh,
vertical.
I think I'm, yeah, I'm 82 years old. I'm
Me
vertical.
too.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you really cut to the quick there, John. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
vertical.
I'm that kind of guy. So
And my brain still seems to be working, and I'm
perfect.
busier. I'm busier than ever. You and I were talking previously about my latest adventure, which is launching a short form video on TikTok, which is called Badass Granddad. Badass, all one word. Granddad with two D's in the middle, and any of your viewers can just dial up that on the search box.
Wonderful.
And what they are is short videos, which all start with one of my crazy adventure stories, which we went through a lot in my previous appearance here, so I won't do
Yep.
that again to you. But I start with a short adventure story so that these young people I'm aiming for on TikTok are not putting their phones down or dismissing me as some old fart. They're listening to the adventure stories, which are pretty damn exciting.
So okay. Before we get there, why did you do this? Why did you launch this TikTok
Yeah,
channel?
well, my life was about expanding my audience. I've already got a pretty good foothold among, shall I say, more senior people like yourself and myself. But I thought that the demographic I was missing was young people. And so I have grandchildren, and they're constantly advising me. They are my board of advisors. And they said, "Hey, Grandpa, you got to use things like Instagram and TikTok, and if you're not comfortable, then get comfortable."
And what is it that you want to get out there? What is it
I
that
want to
you're
get out
trying
there
to?
with a basic message, and it's the same. Excuse me. It's the same basic message I give to anyone. It's the same basic message that motivates you and I. It's the search for purpose, the search for meaning. Your thoughts to begin this episode were right on. But you and I aren't the first people to discover how the importance of purpose. I think people discovered that dancing around the campfires as Neanderthals. I mean, it's as old as history that the most important thing for anybody's life is to find a life of purpose, purpose of meaning, and purpose and meaning. And
Okay,
that's what
so
I've been saying to everybody, and now I'm saying it to young people.
so repeat that. Let's repeat that. The most important thing in life is to live with purpose and to live with meaning.
To search for it, I should say. The most important search, because you don't find it immediately. At
Right.
least I sure didn't. But the most important thing in life is to never stop the search for personal meaning in your life. And what I've discovered after a whole first half of my life where I thought I had found meaning, but I found it in the wrong places. I found it through physical adventure, through violent actions and climbing mountains and dodging bullets and in wars and revolutions. And it turned out that was pretty shallow. And I discovered in my life, and then when I looked around, I discovered other people had made the same discovery that the real place to find purpose is in some kind of service. I don't mean sackcloth and ashes. I don't mean becoming Mother Teresa. I mean just doing stuff the right way. If you're a businessman, that means building a good product, selling it for a fair price under fair labor conditions and environmental conditions, and being a good neighbor in the communities where you operate, whatever. You can be of service anywhere. As a barber, as a neurosurgeon, as a businessman, as a nonprofit leader. All I'm saying, John, is that the most important thing in life is to search for that purpose. Figure out who you are. What skills and resources do you have? I mean, are you good at math? Are you an artist? What skills and resources and contacts do you have? And that helps point you toward something you might do to be of service to the planet, whether you're working in business or government or any place. And that's the same basic message I use for the young people. But I do it because I need to get their attention, and because they're listening to me on a smartphone and not a computer. I have to do that very quickly. So I tell these adventure stories, pull them in, and then I talk a little bit about purpose, just for like 60 seconds or so when I've got their attention. And I can grab them in 60 seconds where I would lose them in 5 minutes. And that's what I'm doing. These short form 3 minute videos, starting with an adventure story and then some modest, non-smarmy life lesson on courage and meaning, service, that sort of thing.
Well, setting aside the format and the TikTok videos, I love what you're doing. And first of all, everybody has got their own purpose. No two people are alike. Another thing is that purpose changes, right? I mean, is that true? I mean, and as life goes on, your purpose may change, right?
I would amend that a little bit. I think
Okay,
in my what I've learned in my own life is that the basic purpose is some kind of service. So what changes all the time is not so much the purpose, let's call that the strategy, but the tactics. How do
got
I
it.
implement the purpose?
Right.
That changes all the time. For example, this TikTok thing, Badass Granddad, is the latest tactic that I'm employing. I also employ tactics of platform speaking and writing books and blogs and whatever. Those are tactics, but the basic strategy is one of finding meaning and never giving up on refining that search for meaning. But the meaning hasn't changed. And it's not just me, it's the 2,000 people, my organization, the Giraffe Heroes Project, has honored for sticking their necks out to do brave things to solve problems. They all think the same thing too. They found purpose and they found it in some kind of service. It might be
There you go.
It might be fighting violence against women in West Africa. It might be blowing the whistle on a corrupt company in Kentucky. It could be anything, but it's some kind of service, something that makes the world a better place. And so the purpose, I think, once you found that purpose, and I suspect y- that most people will find it ultimately if you're an honest searcher or find it in some kind of service. And again, I'm quick to say that I wasn't very quick and I wasn't very fast at finding purpose. I found it in the wrong places. Man, I found
Yeah.
finding purpose for me was hanging off a cliff on the end of a rope or staring down a gun barrel at somebody in Africa or in some desert someplace. Um, and I was wrong. I was wrong. It was just too damn shallow. Too damn shallow. There wasn't
I
enough.
think there wasn't enough what?
There wasn't. I mean, there wasn't enough. The meaning was insufficient. I knew there was something more. And I found that out. I think I told the story, so I won't retell it, but I really got my comeuppance in the middle of a terrific battle in Vietnam, where I really discovered that here I was in this battle. I hated the war. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was a lost cause. I knew it was stupid. My home was 8,000 miles away, and yet I was making decisions that were costing people their lives. Why was I doing it? I was in Vietnam as a volunteer. No one ordered me to go there. Why was I there? I was there just for the adventure. Just for the adventure, because getting shot at was to me the ultimate adventure. So I went, okay? But people were dying because of that, John. And
Yeah.
I am basically a compassionate person, I think, with a decent amount of integrity. And it suddenly caught up with me that I wasn't living that life. I was living a life as I don't know, a moral monster. I mean, it was awful. I had sunk that low. I had like taken a large hunk of plywood and nailed it over my heart, so I couldn't feel the emotions that I should have felt for all the pain and suffering and violence that I went through. And so after that battle, I began to rip that board off. I went back to California. I guess I had what now called PTSD, but it was a year I had to get my life back together, which, as you know, I did. I turned my life around, and it's been in a totally different life since then. Now, 42 years now, 44 years, whatever it's been. But so I'm quick to say that you never want to stop that search for purpose until you found it, and you'll know when you found it. You'll know when you found it because all of a sudden there's a certain satisfaction in your life. There's a certain passion in what you're doing that is simply a bigger passion than making a whole shitload of money or amassing power. It's different. And it's this real sense of looking in the mirror in the morning and seeing what looks back at you in that mirror and knowing that you're here on the planet for a purpose, that you're not just here marking time. It's that kind of feeling. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
until you achieve that kind of meaning, I urge people to keep looking, never give it up at any age.
Your search took you to multiple countries, took you, you just described part of it as being, looking down the barrel of a gun and hanging off a cliff. And a lot of people, I think one thing that a lot of people think, and it's just maybe it's just part of how we grew up, is that the search for meaning, could involve climbing the Himalayas and looking for that man on the mountain, or it's out there somewhere. My meaning is out there somewhere. I need to go out there. I need to find it. I don't, you know, and that's what you went through. And do you have any comments in terms? I mean, is that a process that is necessary? Is that a mindset that it's out there somewhere that you have to go on adventures to find? And how do you advise folks to seek out seek out their purpose?
Take a quiet walk in the woods, look up at a starry sky. I mean, John, you've just started finding better. And obviously you're doing it because it's meaningful to you and it's an enormous service that you're doing. So I can throw the same question back at you. I mean, why did you do that? I mean, it's like you didn't have to do that. You're bright. You could probably make $1 zillion if you were a business person. You're doing this. I'm doing what I'm doing. Why did we do it? Why did we keep searching? How do we do it? I think a lot of it is closing out the clutter, which is harder and harder to do these days because of the internet and social,
No kidding. Yep.
especially for young people, which is one reason why I'm doing this badass Granddad series, to try to bust through that clutter of young people on their phones.
I
Uh,
love it.
but you gotta keep looking, and most of all, you have to take those quiet moments and assess where you are. That quiet walk in the woods, looking up at a starry sky, talking to a really trusted friend, whatever. Trying to get,
That's almost the exact opposite of what you went through.
yeah, exactly. Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, you learn from unless you're really stupid, you learn from your mistakes. And yeah, I made every mistake in the book. I went down every wrong path you could possibly think of. And so things got so bad that at that battle in Vietnam, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I knew I had to change my life. But I was like a Missouri mule, had to be whacked over the head with a 2x4 to get it because I wasn't getting it. And I wasn't a kid anymore either. I was almost 30 years old at that time of that battle. And it's like, okay, all right, I got to change.
So
People,
note,
I,
uh-huh.
I mean, other people, let me just make this point very clearly. You can find meaning in your life without being in a battle. You can find meaning in your life without hanging from a rope. Uh, One of the things I often tell people is, try this, just try this. You're driving down, you got a long commute, you're coming back, going to work, whatever. The next time you're stuck at a red light, instead of tapping your foot on the accelerator or the brake pedal saying, God damn it, that's the longest light in the world, shut your mind off and use that 38 seconds to quiet your mind and say, what's going on? What's going on? Or look up at a billboard, and while it may say buy Jones toothpaste, there might be something in that billboard, maybe the smile of a model or something that triggers something in you. Because the signs for finding purpose, I think, are all around us. And if you're really adamant and going in the wrong direction, which I was for half of my life, then you're going to ignore those signs. But if you open yourself to the science, I'm convinced, and I'm not talking about God speaking to you. It's just the universe is out there with these messages, and you may find them by quieting your emotions when you're stopped at a red light when you're in a hurry, or looking up at a billboard, or the damnedest thing, or that quiet walk in the woods. There's all kinds of signs around us and that will lead you to question. And when you start to question, then be an honest questioner. That's when talking to a loved one or a trusted friend is important. Um, and taking stock of who you are, for example. I'm really good at math. What does that mean in terms of my service? I'm really a great artist. What does that mean? What does that, and just start doing these basic questions, and try to, as best you can, clear the clutter. Put down that cell phone and stop listening to all the crap, and maybe stop playing video games for half an hour anyway and just put yourself in a quiet place. It's not,
One thing,
it's not, it's not easy. It's not easy, not in today's world with all the competing distractions. I understand it's not
but it
easy.
doesn't have to be hard either.
Well, no, it doesn't have to be hard either. I mean, it's like once I had gone through that downturn in Vietnam, where to go, where to point my life became increasingly obvious. It just was not easy to get there because for 30 years I had had that piece of plywood over my heart and it didn't come off all in one piece. I had to gradually start. And the first thing I did was to start being a better father to my two children and start establishing relationships to other people, which were based on something more than convincing them that I was their answer to John Wayne. I mean, that I was a nice guy, that I was a compassionate person, gradually learning how to develop friendships, gradually shifting my leadership style, so that I was a far more compassionate leader. Uh, all that took years. All that took years. Didn't happen overnight.
Well, when you built up whatever it was underneath that piece of plywood for however many years, takes a while to undo it, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. But I'm 82 now, so I've had plenty of time. I got no excuses now for
Yeah, there
backsliding.
you go. There you go. It's funny. I just want to just a few things that you said. Um, I believe that in a broad sense, we all share a common purpose, and that is to make the world better than the day we landed on it.
Hmm.
And what I did was, when I retired 2.5 years ago, I sat back and I said, okay, so what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I do believe that uh, a lot of it is about giving back.
Hmm.
And so the question I asked myself is, what are my superpowers?
Hmm.
Right? Every one of us has superpowers.
Hmm.
And some people, like you said, it may be math. Some people it may be compassion. Some people it may be love and patience. Whatever it is, lots of people have super. Everybody's got some superpower, and that's where I started. I started with, okay, what am I really, really good at?
Hmm.
With the idea that how can I take what I'm really, really good at and make the world better than the day I landed on it?
Yeah.
And I sat back and I said, I'm pretty good at speaking.
Yeah.
Um, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at being authentic,
Yeah.
and I'm really good at wanting to help people.
Yeah.
And that's why I started this podcast, and
Yeah.
which is very much aligned with you and what you're wanting to do and your purpose and reaching folks, young folks and old folks, with your message, which is a wonderful, wonderful message. It's all about finding better, and in your case, it's finding better through purpose and purpose through service. I love it.
It is. It is. It's interesting because when you quit 2.5 years ago, and obviously you have a great gift as a communicator. Um, you could have said to yourself, well, I'm a great communicator. Everybody seems to like me. I have a very likable face. I think what I'll do is join some crooked company and sell some shit on the internet that I know doesn't work. And I'll make a lot of money doing that. You could have gone down that.
Sure.
It would have been a use of your skills, but you didn't do that. Why? Because there was a higher purpose and you felt that. You felt that. It was some kind of service. Whereas selling a shitty project or cheating people with a corrupt practice, that doesn't provide that. And so it's not just finding out who you are as a good speaker, for example, as a good communicator, as a great at math or whatever. That's important. But you got to find out, okay, what do I put this to use for? And that calls
Yeah.
in who you really are, who you really are, and who you really are, obviously is a person of great integrity and a mission to make the world a better place. And so this podcast is one of the things that you're doing, and it's a terrific service. Terrific.
And so much fun. So
Yes,
much fun. I mean,
isn't
I
that
mean, I
that's
mean, I don't,
important? It's got to be
yeah.
fun.
And but there's a connection there, right? There's a connection there. I think, I had a guest on. She was amazing. She's a therapist, a psychotherapist. And we were talking about, and the theme of our conversation was the brain thinks, but the heart knows.
Mm,
And we were talking about the a connection of intelligence, that the heart actually has intelligence, and it's a big, big part of who we
yeah.
are.
Mhm.
And so, and to that same kind of idea, I think that, you know, I'm having fun because I'm kind of fulfilling my purpose,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's aligned, it's congruent. And I think there's a real connection that happens when people make that leap.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's a point that we should spend a little time on, and that's having fun. You're right. I mean, you live a life of purpose, and your heart sings, kind of. You're passionate about what you're doing. You're
Exactly,
passionate about
exactly.
your podcast, and you take great pride in your accomplishments and putting people like that woman on your show and having her share her wisdom.
And
Uh,
you.
and me. I mean, it's fun, and it's fun. I mean, I can't tell you how much fun I have doing this TikTok thing with the kids, with the young people. Uh,
That's amazing.
we go back and forth and back and forth. I get huge amounts of comments, and I think I spend maybe 3, 4 hours a week on my TikTok. How shall I call it? Fan mail. Because I expected a lot of snarky comments. After all, the audience is in their 20s, right? I don't get that. I get honest questions and honest searchings and honest comments. And so I spend time. I spend time answering them as best I can. And and some of it is just such a great sense of pleasure. I mean, I sign off on a message and there's a big smile on my face because maybe I've helped that young person understand the conundrums that he or she was trying to figure out. Or maybe I've put a little bee in a bonnet someplace or made a suggestion that might resonate or something. And that's made my day. I mean, you know how it is. You sometimes have one comment. You think maybe you've changed one life and it makes your whole friggin' day. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's why that's why I'm on the planet.
Well, I loved how you said, yeah, how you made the comment about your heart sings, because we've all experienced that. We've all experienced those moments when literally we can feel our heart singing and our heart being happy, and we're just, it's just it's good. Everything is good. Your spirit is strong. Everything you're feeling like you're totally aligned, and that's what happens. That's what happens. And um, I made the joke about being upright and vertical. and and I say that to myself every single day, because it's you get to a point to where you start being appreciative for every day you actually wake up. And now the question is, what are you going to do with it? And there are so many people that are lost and are looking for that. They're going through the motions. It's the rat race, and everybody's trying to keep up with each other. And there's so much more depth in who we are and why we're here. And I love how you are helping people find it and find that purpose, and making the world better. And I want to spend a moment talking about um, the Giraffe Heroes project. Now, folks, this is not about saving giraffes per se, uh, but again, as deep as saving giraffes might be, this is much deeper. John, can you just share what that is?
Oh, sure, I can. First of all, I want to say that I didn't start it. I wasn't bright and creative enough. The Giraffe Heroes Project was started by a woman who was a writer and editor in New York City in the early 80s. Her name is Ann Medlock. And I had just left the Foreign Service then because my ideals then were so strong that I couldn't work for anyone, certainly not the State Department. It was moving way too slow. I needed something faster. So I thought
Mm.
that giving speeches, because I was like you, I'm a great communicator. So I thought giving great speeches in the middle of the Cold War would be a terrific way for me to make peace in the world. The trouble was, no one listened to my speeches. Anne, however, had a different take.
Wait. Were you speaking in an auditorium with nobody in
Yeah,
it?
I was. I tried to, but I mean, it's like, oh, there are plenty of speakers. There's plenty of anti-war protests and stuff. So I was disappointed. At the same time, though, Anne took a different tack. She's a storyteller in her way, and we shared a vision, if you will, of making the world a better place. But her vision was her method of operating was to find people sticking their necks out. That is to say, being brave, showing courage to solve some kind of public problem. It could be anything on something on New York City streets or something in Botswana. I mean, someplace she found someone doing something brave to help their community or the world. and she would interview them and get their stories told. She'd get a movie star or a stage star to do the voiceover and create these short videos. And in those days, early 80s, she would either record them on a vinyl record. I mean, half your audience doesn't even know what a vinyl record is. It goes round and round on a turntable, sound comes out, you know. Uh,
Yeah. And the old saying that the saying that you might have heard, like you're sounding like a broken record,
that's
that
it.
that
Yeah,
that's what vinyl records are. It's where
that's
the
right.
little stylus, the little needle
There you go.
that would read
Oh,
read the grooves in this vinyl record would skip lines, and then it go gagung gagung gagung, and it would repeat it. Anyway, sorry, I got
you're
off on a
showing
tangent.
you're showing your age. Anyway, she would send these records out to in the beginning it was pretty small radio stations because no one knew what she was doing. So she'd send them out to small radio stations that would play them. They were only 3 or 4 minute segments. And she'd use a fax machine. She'd send people faxes with the giraffe stories on it. And that's how she started. And it became almost an instant success. Within a couple of years, there was a nice story in the New York Times on what Ann Medlock was doing.
Wow.
And about that time, I had left the Foreign Service. And my lecturing business was going nowhere, so I was looking for a venue for my ideals because by then, man, I saw myself as an engine for peace and justice in the world. And at the United Nations, I was. I did some great stuff at the UN, including helping end apartheid. I did some great stuff there. But anyway, I left the Foreign Service and was sort of wandering around New York, and I meet Anne. And the first thing that happens is I fall madly in love with her. And so I'm looking at her not just at what she's doing, but who she is as a person. And I gradually began to realize that her tactic is far superior to mine. And it has been for thousands of years. Storytelling has been a hugely important way for any culture to instill heroism in its people by telling the stories of other heroes.
Right.
You
Right.
talked 20 minutes ago about examples. Well, that's what storytelling is. It's the troubadours in the Middle Ages or whatever. So Anne was kind of like the troubadour for the 20th century. And I really began to see the power of telling stories. And so I joined her, and we have been leading the Giraffe Heroes project ever since and doing the same things that she started doing. We find people sticking their necks out now after 40 years, 42 years. It's almost 2,000 people, and we tell their stories, inspiring other people to stick their necks out too.
There you go.
These stories are all free downloads. Our website, and this is pretty easy to remember, is simply giraffe.org. I urge all your viewers to dial in, and up at the nav bar, you'll see a way to get to these stories.
And is it free?
Oh yeah, it's all free.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
it's all free.
Yeah, we're not here to sell you anything, folks.
And no,
But yeah.
I'm not a why at 82, what the hell do I have to sell? I mean, uh, anyway, yeah. And in the 43 years we've been in operation, we've created a program for young people all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade, helping them build lives as courageous, compassionate citizens. I've written 4 books on the themes we're talking about today, leadership, courage, meaning. I'm on podcasts like yours, trying to spread the word through that. I take targets of opportunity like this TikTok thing. Um, and that's what I've been doing. But the Giraffe Project has been at the center of it, and it's been my base of operations for 43 years. And so I do urge people to take a look at our website and to look at it, not just at the giraffe stores, but take a look at the page of our schools program, see what we're offering. And a lot of that is free downloads. We used to sell it, and now at this point we're giving it away. Uh, and any teacher or parent can download it for their kids. And of course, there's all kinds of other stuff that we're doing, including Giraffe Heroes International, which is something we started about 10 years ago, establishing affiliates of the Giraffe Heroes Project in other countries, mostly in poor countries that are in real need of finding their country's heroes. We now have seven, eight affiliates, most of them in Africa and Asia, and
That's amazing.
I deal with that part of it a lot, and it's really uplifting because in many ways, being a giraffe hero, being courageous, being a courageous problem solver is a lot tougher in places like Africa or Asia,
Oh, I can't even
where
imagine.
there are so
Can't even
fewer
imagine.
resources. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the stories that we tell from Africa are, for example, are just like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Um, so,
Well,
for example, just one example. I mean, as some of your viewers may know, um, women's rights in some parts of Africa, especially in tribal societies, are almost non-existent. Women get are are constantly abused, sometimes physically abused. There's some horrible things, and some of the things that happen to young women and girls in places like rural tribal areas of Sierra Leone, Uganda,
hmm.
for,
Yep.
and they don't have constitutional rights, whatever. But we've discovered a whole bunch of other women who have stood up to tribal societies at great risk because the tribal chiefs don't like this competition. The
Or
idea
conflict.
of women having a voice in anything. Um,
Hmm.
so they try to kill them. These young women go into these villages and talk to other women about their rights, and they go to the capital city and lobby for constitutional changes to protect women's rights, give them the vote, give them more political power. All at great risk. And so some of the stories of that 2000 are of these young women who are doing incredibly brave stuff. I mean, it just takes your breath away with some of
That's
the.
amazing. That's amazing. So, so here's, I just want to make sure everybody understands that this is not about taking your own life into your own, taking your life into your own hands and challenging tribal leaders that would otherwise want to kill you. But the stories, these 2000 stories, what strikes me, John, is that as much as it is wonderful listening to your background and what you're doing. Um, what occurred to me is that there's an opportunity, folks, right? Uh, to follow John's path, not through the bullets and the cliffs, but I mean, read these stories, be inspired by these stories, and somewhere along the line, you may find your purpose. You may find that service because that's like I said at the very beginning of this, um, it'll change your perspective, right? And also, taking a quiet walk through the woods. I love that. Looking up at the stars. When you said that, John, I think about uh, times when I just lay on my back, in a really dark place, and I look up at the stars. And it's amazing what comes. It's amazing what you think of and what comes to mind. And so yeah, you are doing amazing things. And you know what also strikes me in this conversation? Your energy. You keep saying you're 82 years old, but you got the energy of a 30-year-old. And I gotta believe that it's what you're doing that propels you, right?
Yeah. Oh, it is. I mean, it's like my wife Ann and I were on a program the other day about dealing with senior couples that have been together for a long time, and we talk about that, and it's like the things that allow me to do what I do at 82. Uh, some of it's pretty basic, like good eating habits, lots of exercise, stuff like that. But the other part of it is living a life with purpose. And another part of that is having the right people around you, and I are
Yes.
both aware of that. We're very supportive of each other. Not that we don't disagree on a lot of stuff we do, but we make life really interesting for each other, and we have a lot of fun together, and we talk a lot. And we're aligned philosophically and existentially, and that's really important for anyone, I think, in terms of living a long and productive life. I don't know when my life is going to end, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I can't climb mountains anymore. Hell, it sometimes even hurts to climb the stairs. But yeah, I'm slowing down, but my brain isn't slowing down. I'm constantly looking for new stuff. Oh, I just finished my latest book is a picture a book called Denali Diary. It's a book I spent a year or two composing of a record of a climb I was on 53 years ago, 54 years ago, of the first ascent of the north wall of Denali, which is the highest mountain face on the planet, higher top to bottom than anything on Mount Everest. An incredibly dangerous climb that no one had ever done, and no one has ever done since because of its danger. And there's a
Wow.
great story there. And so I decided to finally put together all these photographs and a first-person diary. And I'm hoping within a month or so, you'll see notice of it on my website. Oh, by the way, my own website is my name, johngraham.org, and you'll find it there. So, that's another thing that I'm doing.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
did I also say
I,
I have a
I
third
want to
one?
back up for a second. I want to
Yeah,
back up
yeah,
for a second.
okay. Please, yeah.
You said that it's really important to have supportive people around you. And for those people who don't, because a lot of people don't,
Mm.
um, how do they find those people? How do they build that support around them?
Huh. Gosh, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask about that, but you just don't isolate yourself. You open yourself up. I mean, even at any age, there's a way to meet people, to be
Put yourself out there.
extremely selectively use of the internet, for example. Extremely selective, I say, so, because there's so much bullshit on the internet.
Ugh, yeah,
But a
yeah,
lot of people make some good connections on the internet, and then turn those into personal connections. Um, and just put yourself out there. When you go to the grocery store, spend a few extra moments to ask the checkout person how their kids are doing, or to make some joke to someone trying to pick a cheese next to you, trying to pick a cheese at the cheese counter. I mean, and some people are really shy. I get that. So I don't have a lot of advice because I'm an extrovert. So those sorts of things are kind of easy for me and hard for other people. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
but it is important, and every psychologist that I've ever read or talked to says that it's important that we humans are communal animals, and we do best if we have some other human connections.
yeah. I have a cardinal rule in my life that says I never deal with unpleasant people.
Mm.
And I've lived with that my entire career. And my whole career was around sales. And people would ask me, how can you do that in sales? You got to deal with unpleasant people. And I said, no, I don't. I don't. You know, if I'm having to deal with unpleasant people, I'll find other people to deal with. And because life is too short and sucky people just suck the life out of you. So, the idea is, if you're living with bad energy around you, find a way, step one, to change it. First of all, get rid of it, and
Yeah,
then swap it out with something better.
good
And
idea.
because it is really important, hugely important.
Mm. Mm. That's good advice. Good advice. Thank you. Yeah, good point. Mm.
Yeah. So, yep.
Mm.
Were you going to say something?
No, no, no.
Okay. All right. Good.
I was just
Good.
commenting on the fact that your idea of closing out the bad stuff is a pretty good idea.
Just let it go, right? Just let it go. It's funny because when I was working, I did a lot of public speaking as you did. And one of the things I would tell people is, you know what? Recycle your clients. And they go, what do you mean by that? I said, something might want to try is every year take 5% of your clients and fire them. Fire them. And, take the most toxic people. And I said, every one of you know has clients that are toxic that people just try to avoid at all costs. Tell them that you're not the right company for them. And at one talk I was with, someone came up and they said, I want to let you know, John, I took your advice. And I fired a client of ours who represented 8% of our business. Huge,
Oh,
huge.
well,
8% of our business. And we told them that we're not the right fit for them. I said, "You did?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "And what did your staff do? Did your staff get depressed and unhappy and yell at you for doing that?" She says, "Oh my God, we had a party. We had a party." And she says, and it was wonderful. It was uplifting. We just got that energy out of our lives. And you know what? We filled that void with more business.
mm,
It just happens that way. You talked about the universe,
mm,
right?
mm,
I mean, we can go on talking forever. But anyway, it just, when you let things go, other stuff comes in. It just happens that way.
yeah,
So, try it. It might work.
yeah, yeah.
You and I have talked about a lot of amazing things. I am going to check out your TikTok. Badass Granddad, everybody.
Yeah. That-
Granddad with two D's.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out because I love what you're doing. I love how you're helping not only established people, but now you're helping young people. And you got over 100,000 people on who've looked at your TikTok, right?
Yeah, it's growing every week. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. Well, it's wonderful to know that you're reaching people.
Mm.
John, we're out of time. You have any last comments you want to share?
Just to thank you, John, and to thank you not just for your podcast, but for your wonderful spirit. I think you're doing a terrifically important thing on the planet. And your whole idea of finding better is exactly the right topic. And so I want to thank you.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you. I feel we're of kindred spirits in what we're trying to do at this point in our lives. And folks, for more information about John, go to is it johngraham.org?
That's right. All one word, John,
Okay,
JOHN
John.
.org.
Yeah.
And all my sordid history is in there. Oh, here. I said I wouldn't sell anything, but damn it, I did write a memoir. It's called Quest, Quest, subtitle Risk, Adventure, and the Search for Meaning. You can find it on Amazon or order it from a bookstore.
Well, cool. Cool, John. I'm sure some folks are going to take a look at it. I'll look it up on Amazon. John, thank you. I love you. God bless you. Thank you again for joining me. Folks, thank you. And thank you for being here. Please share this. Please subscribe. And God bless you. Thank you again. We'll see you next time. Bye.